my beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be the books that I read in January. So it is a wrap up of January's books. I actually read 10 books in January, and if you know me or you've been here for a while, you'll know that that is quite rare for me to be able to punt out to that many books in a month. But I did manage in January, and January is one of my stronger reading months, so I'm going to delve right in to what I read this month. Now, I've got my iPad next to me because not all of them were physical books. I actually cannot find one of the physical books I read, which is a bit of a pain. I have no idea where I've set that down. So unfortunately, that will not be in the video, but I will be talking about it. But this is a mix between audiobooks and physical books. So I am just going to get straight into it and start with what I started the year with, which was Always and Forever, Lara Jean by Jenny Han. There we go. And that was a 4-star for me. So that is the third in a series by Jenny Han, and I love the stories and I love the films that went along with it as well. So I'd read the first two like over the last couple of years, but I still had the third one to complete the series. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna complete that series, and I did, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a 4-star, a nice YA, slow into the year start, and it worked out quite well for me. And then the next one was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Now, this is a very hyped up book, and I have owned it for quite some time. It has got like sticky fingerprints on it. Lovely. And I have the original version of this, and I also have the new hardback cover that came out when it was re-released and when it was picked up by a publisher. I gave this 3.5 stars. I wasn't a massive fan of it. I went into it thinking it was something that it wasn't. For what it was, the story was really good. I really liked the characters. I just felt like the storyline wasn't very strong, and there wasn't a lot that tied up bits of the story that I kind of wanted more of. But it was it's kind of like a soft fantasy, so it's a nice introduction going into the world of fantasy. So if you're not a fantasy reader, I would highly recommend it because I feel like you would really enjoy it. I just feel personally, as a fantasy reader, it just wasn't what I expected, and that's down to me. That is nothing to do with this book at all. It is purely down to myself. So please do not be put off by my 3.5-star rating. That is still a really good rating for me. It's just that it wasn't my cup of tea. But like I said, if you want to delve into the world of fantasy and you're not sure where to start, this is definitely a good start to try out. And then next, it's trying to remember all the books that I read. I read The Great Gatsby, which is a classic, and I read this and gave it, I believe it was 4 stars that I gave it. It was 5 stars I gave it, actually. So when I went into this, I didn't really know a lot about it. I've not seen the movie or anything, and I was expecting it to be a bit bland, a bit boring, and it wasn't. The start was quite a slow start. For a short book, the start was really slow, and it took me about 20 or 30 pages to get into it. It's only like 148 pages or so, 150 pages. So I struggled a little bit with it, but I did not realize how sad this book was. So like the last maybe 60 pages really sold this book for me. I absolutely loved it. It really pulled at my heartstrings, and I was not expecting that ending. So I would highly recommend this. If you're not a classics reader, this is a nice little one to get you into it, because it's actually made me think that the classics that are on my shelf, maybe I would potentially like them instead of being terrified of them. And this is a book that I've wanted to read for a really long time, so it was really nice to kind of get this off my TBR finally and be in my read pile. So highly recommend, 5 stars for that one. And then we had The Roommate by Rosie Danan, and I can't find this copy anywhere. I have no idea where I've put it. It is somewhere in the house. I cannot find it on any of my bookshelves. I've just newly got bookshelves and like put everything onto them. So finding where everything is, I'm not 100% clued up. I don't have like 100% of a system yet. One of my bookshelves is a system, but like the one behind me and stuff, there is no system there whatsoever. So I am struggling to find it, so it is maybe just right in front of my eyes, I just can't see it. But I gave The Roommate 5 stars, I believe. Yeah, it was a 5-star. The smut and the romance in it was one of my favourites, and I ended up actually buying the second book of hers, The Intimacy Experiment. So I'm hoping to get to that one soon, because I really enjoyed the way that Rosie Danan wrote, and the way the emotions and the relationship kind of built, and there was kind of like a slow burn, but then there was also quite a lot of frantic burn going on as well. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. So that was a very, very good smutty book, and I read some of that smut while I was at work as well, so that was something. And then I've been re-listening to, well, not re-listening to, I've never listened to the Harry Potter audiobooks, but I finished and read The Goblet of Fire. I'm currently on Order of the Phoenix, but I got Goblet of Fire knocked out, and I gave that 5 stars. I give them 5 stars every time, but this is the first time I'm going through the audiobook experience with Stephen Fry, and I'm a big fan of that. So I am currently working my way through all of those books, and Goblet of Fire was read last month. Then, controversial, I know, 2 controversial books in a row. I read It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. I really enjoy her writing. I know a lot of people have like written her off, and I totally understand. I do not agree with any of her views, and I feel like I need to do a disclaimer pretty much every time I talk about an author that is troublesome and problematic. But I read It Ends With Us not last year but the year before, and really enjoyed it. I don't feel like it glamorizes like toxic relationships at all. I think for someone that's been in a toxic relationship, it's quite nice to have that sort of side of it, like that story heard. So for me personally, I like the fact that that story is heard, and that you can, if you've been through certain experiences, you can kind of relate to it instead of it being like a lovey-dovey sort of situation with like no badness or anything. I enjoy it for that factor. They're very easy reads. They're not too, you know, difficult to read. You can read through them quite quickly. This one is a really short one as well. I gave this one 3 stars. So it wasn't my favorite. I enjoyed the storyline. I just felt like we didn't really need to know the story that was told here. Colleen Hoover only wrote this book because It Ends With Us, everybody wanted to know what happened next. I feel like I could have lived quite happily not knowing what happened next. I feel like, not that I wasted my time reading this book, but like I could have been quite happy and at peace knowing that the 2 characters just lived their life and that was kind of it. So I understand why she read it, because people wanted it, but I just feel like she didn't give the readers 100% what I was expecting from it. So I was quite disappointed by this one. It's not the worst book I've ever read, but it's definitely my least favourite of hers that I have read. So that one was a 3-star, which was quite disappointing and quite sad, but you can't love everything. And then the next book was A Life on Our Planet by David Attenborough. That was an audiobook. Daniel listened to that audiobook, and then basically I decided that I wanted to listen to it because he gave it so much praise. So it's David Attenborough basically talking through all the different stages of how the population growing and increasing in the world has changed things on our earth. And it's quite fascinating because it really makes you think about all your life choices that you do and your impact. Even though it feels like your impact's not like a massive thing to the world, it makes you really consider things that maybe you've not considered before about how you can help with your carbon footprint. And I just really enjoyed it and felt so small in such a big picture. But if everybody did the things that he was talking about and the way the societies go, the way he talks about, we could actually make a big difference. So it was really fascinating on that level, and I really enjoyed it. And it's something that I would not usually have picked up. And I gave it 5 stars because I just thought it was excellent. And then the next one was Cat Lady by Donal Porter. Again, this one was an audiobook, and I gave it 5 stars. This is about a lady that owns a cat and basically just lives her life, and everything goes to absolute rubbish, and she is trying to claw onto any part of her life that is good and trying to fix the problems that are bad, but she just seems to have the worst run of luck. This book is incredibly sad, and there's triggers in there that I was not aware of, and I am very sad about it and was not mentally ready for that, and was walking about Aldi doing my shopping and almost bawling my eyes out. So please be very careful if you're going into that, and maybe have a little read of the trigger warnings, because one of them is definitely my trigger warning. And I don't have any trigger warnings, but that one definitely is. And if you know me, you probably know what that is without having to look it up. But yeah, when it comes to animals, I struggle a little bit, shall we say. So yes, it was a 5-star, absolutely loved it, was absolutely amazing, would absolutely recommend it. And I can't wait to buy that physically because I do not own it physically. And then the next one was Notes on a Nervous Planet by Matt Haig. This still has the Tesco 2 for £8 sticker on it. Oh well. Excuse me. I listened to this in audio form. This book has been on my shelf for God knows how long, and I mean God knows how long. Probably since this book came out, which was... When was this book out? What's the date on this book? Well, it's not 1940. Why is that date in there? That's really strange. What year did... 2018. I've probably had this book since 2018, have not picked it up. I've got a lot of his other books that are like this as well, and I've not read them. But I listened to the audiobook of this, and this really made me think as well. There was so many things in this that made me feel like I wasn't so alone in my thinking. So this book is based around Matt Haig and his anxieties and how he kind of overcame certain things and dealt with the anxiety that he had. And it was quite fascinating to see how he dealt with it, how his wife dealt with it, how he dealt with it in like a family setting when everything was going on, and like how he coped in certain situations that were really quite difficult to cope in with really high anxiety. And the fascinating thing about this audiobook, it was read by Matt Haig, and I didn't realise how English his accent was because I've never heard him speak, but he had a really good accent and the way he read was really, really well. So I really enjoyed the audiobook for that, and I gave it 4 stars. So highly recommend that in audiobook form. I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much if I had physically read it, because the fact that he read it to me and his thoughts and feelings were all attached to what he was saying, I enjoyed it that way. And then the last one, the last book that I read in January 2023, and can I just say, this will be my favourite book of the year. I'm telling you right now. Or it might be my second favourite, because if I read the second one and I absolutely love that one, then that will be my favourite. But this has sat on my shelf for quite some time. I've been putting it off. I don't know why. I regret all my decisions, but basically I have read Crescent City. I did a spoiler vlog on it. If you're interested, please go watch this because I film my reactions throughout this. I loved this book with all of my heart. The way Sarah J Maas pulls at your heartstrings and makes you love people and then makes you hate them so quickly and make you feel so fooled by them. There was a little bit of smut in this, which I was not expecting. I totally expected this to be the tiniest little bit of smut. There was no sex or anything in it, but the slow burn that this woman does is just incredible. It just hits the spot the way it should do. I loved how high fantasy this was. I loved the characters. I loved that there was like 10 million different storylines going at the same time, and it was quite hard to keep up. When I first started this book, the first like 80 pages, I was struggling a little bit to like figure out what was going on and who was who. But by the end of the book, I was loving so many characters. There's so much sadness in this. Like Bryce, the main character, her feelings and emotions, I felt like I knew Bryce and that I was going through this with her, and I felt her pain. And Hunt, what can I say about Hunt? Do I love him more than Rhys-San? Quite possibly, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to make that kind of a statement, so I'm not going to. But yes, absolutely adored this. 5 million stars. 5 stars is just not enough for this. I have been thinking about this book since I finished it. I want to restart it. I want to read the second one right now, but I'm trying not to absorb all of the story because then it's finished and I'm going to have to wait. But honestly, if you have not read this yet, please read it. I know it's chunky, but guess what? It passes quickly. It's a quick read. You're hooked. You don't want to put it down. I don't know how much more praise I can give you on Crescent City. I genuinely don't know how much more I can give. But please, drop everything that you're doing and go read Crescent City. That is my advice to you now. Anyway, I could talk about Crescent City all day, but I'm not going to because we all don't have that kind of time. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It was a really good reading month for me. I'm really excited to see what February brings. And I hope you've all had a lovely day, evening, weekend, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day, whatever time zone, whenever you're watching this. Happy holiday, whatever holiday it is, if it's a holiday. And I will see you guys next time.